Paleolithic hunters and gatherers first settled in Japan. The earliest known dates of their arrival are between 38,000 and 40,000 years ago. Because fossilization is not possible in Japan's acidic soils, there is little proof of their existence. Nonetheless, the finding of ancient edge-ground axes in Japan that date back more than 30,000 years may provide proof of the presence of the country's first Homo sapiens. Let us understand more about ancient Japan. The Japanese archipelago's initial human settlers may be dated back to the Paleolithic, around 38,000 to 39,000 years ago. The Yayoi period, which began in the first millennium BC and was defined by the introduction of new inventions from Asia, succeeded the Jomon period, so called because of its cord-marked earthenware. In the 1st century AD, the Chinese Book of Han contains the earliest known written mention of Japan. The Yayoi people, who came from the continent about the 3rd century BC, brought iron technology and agricultural civilization to the Japanese archipelago. Due to their agricultural culture, the Yayoi people saw fast population growth, eventually surpassing the hunter-gatherer Jomon people who were native to the Japanese archipelago. The Heian period, 794 to 1185, began with the establishment of a new imperial capital at Heian-kyo, modern-day Kyoto. The Heian period continued until 1185. The Heian period is regarded as the height of Japanese classical culture. From this point on, Japanese religious life combined traditional Shinto rituals with Buddhism. The royal house's dominance declined during the ensuing decades, first going to powerful clans of civilian nobles, such the Fujiwara, and subsequently to military clans and their samurai troops. Who are the Yayoi people, and what is their culture? Characterized by Yayoi material culture, the Yayoi people were an ancient ethnic group that existed in the Japanese archipelago during the Yayoi period, 300 BCE to 300 CE. Though this date is debatable, some contend that the Yayoi period began earlier, between 1000 and 800 BCE. The Yayoi civilization is recognized for having introduced agriculture, languages, to the entire archipelago. Its members were primarily Jomon hunter-gatherers from the area, as well as migrants from mainland Asia, before they were driven out and absorbed by the incoming Proto-Koreans. The Yayoi lived in the center and southern regions of the Korean peninsula. Yayoi are not closely linked to the Proto-Koreanic speakers, and that Koreanic speakers coexisted alongside Japonic speakers after arriving on the Korean peninsula from Manchuria approximately 300 BCE. Both influenced one another, and the internal variation of both language families was later reduced by a founder effect. And this is how the Japanese people and their culture came to be. During the Kofun period, the Yayoi people symbolized the period of transition and establishment of the Old Japanese and their culture before being further influenced by continental East Asia. Yayoi is named after the neighborhood in Tokyo, where this form of pottery was originally discovered in 1884 and brought attention from academics. Yayoi pottery was rotated on wheels and fired at temperatures higher than those of Jomon pottery. It is set apart in part by this significant technological advancement and in part by the lack of the ubiquitous embellishment that marked Jomon pottery. The Yayoi, who are said to have existed for 5 or 6 centuries, from roughly the 3rd century BCE to the 2nd or 3rd century CE, represent a significant cultural improvement over the Jomon period. The Qin, 221 to 207 BCE, and Han, 206 BCE to 220 CE dynasties, who had previously ushered in the Iron Age, ruled a unified empire in China throughout the 3rd and 2nd century BCE. Emperor Wudi's army conquered Manchuria and the northern portion of the Korean peninsula in 108 BCE, establishing Lilang and 3 other colonies there. These colonies provided the foundation for a significant Chinese cultural inflow into Korea, from which it subsequently extended to Japan. Rice farming was one of the key aspects of Yayoi culture. Carbonized rice grains and rice husk markings have been found at the oldest Yayoi ceramics and sites, which have been found in northern Kyushu. This indicates that rice growing has been practiced in Japan since the beginning of the country's history. Although these new cultural components show that people from China or the Korean Peninsula migrated to Japan, the migration was not significant enough to alter the characteristics of the people who had lived on the islands since Jomon times. Why did members of an archaic Japanese society modify their skulls? Many times the customs of the past civilizations are still a mystery. One such enigma is the long-standing custom of purposeful cranial alteration, which has baffled academics for many years. It has recently come to light through archaeology that a prosperous Japanese culture on the island of Tanegashima transformed craniums for unknown causes between around the years 200 and 600 AD. This custom, which existed before written records, is said to have been a powerful symbol that could be used to indicate a person's social standing or involvement with a group. Cranial modification, sometimes referred to as head flattening or cranial deformation, is the process of reshaping the skull by gradually applying constant tension. Because their skulls are still soft and flexible, newborns and young children's heads are typically bound or molded to accomplish this. The Hirota site in Kagoshima Prefecture on the island of Tanegashima is one place in Japan that has long been linked to cranial deformity. The Hirota people, who lived here from the end of the Yayoi period, around the 3rd century CE, to the Kofun period, approximately the 5th and 7th century CE, are buried in huge numbers at this site. Who was Emperor Jimmu? The mythological founder of Japan, Emperor Jimmu, was born on the first day of the first month, 660 BCE, according to Kojiki's legendary account. He died on the 11th day of the 3rd month, 585 BCE, according to another legend. Both dates correspond to the traditional Japanese calendar. Traditionally, the Japanese imperial house has claimed the throne based on its lineage back to Jimmu. Jimmu is said to be a direct descendant of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, in Shinto mythology. According to the Japanese lunisolar calendar, New Year's Day was historically observed as Emperor Jimmu's regnal day. Whether myth or based on a real early or even first ruler of Japan, Jimmu has an honored place in Japanese tradition. The idea of a special bond between ruler, land, and people helped to make governance more stable. During the periods of military rule, when shoguns exercised power, the emperor was still revered and remained, at least theoretically, the sovereign. Such was the respect for the institution which, according to the myth of origin, began with Jimmu, that overturning this was unthinkable. What is Shintoism? The native religion of the Japanese people, known as Shinto, the way of the gods, predates Japan itself. It still coexists with Buddhism as the predominant religion in Japan. Neither a founder nor holy texts, such as the Bible or the Sutras, exist in Shinto. Furthermore, preaching Shinto is ingrained in Japanese culture and society. The term Shinto gods is kami. These are holy spirits that manifest as vital elements of existence, like wind, rain, mountains, forests, rivers, and fertility. After death, humans transform into kami, and their families honor them as ancestor kami. At certain shrines, the kami of exceptional persons are even housed. Amaterasu, the sun goddess, is regarded as the most significant kami in Shinto. The residences and places of worship for kami are Shinto shrines. The purpose of most shrines' festivals, or matsuri, is to exhibit the kami to the outside world. Shinto priests dwell on the premises of shrines and carry out Shinto rites. Priests are open to all genders, and they are both permitted to be married and start families. Younger ladies assist priests with rites and shrine duties. Miko are frequently the daughters of priests, wear white kimonos, and are required to be single. Shrine architecture and the growth and preservation of traditional art forms like calligraphy, no drama, and court music, gagaku, a dance music that originated in Tang China's courts, 618 to 907, are significant aspects of Shinto art. Have you been to Japan? What do you think about the mysterious lives of ancient Japanese people? Do let us know your views in the comment section. For more interesting stories and updates, subscribe to our channel and do not forget to press the bell icon for notifications. Goodbye.